It took a couple of days or so, maybe less, playing a video game and finished that up, but it's got a sequel that I'm probably going to get to. But I figure I have to get to this. So I start constructing stuff, and EU and the US are first. Now, they both have elevators, which is important because, well, not for the EU, but for the US, the place where they're set up to build a ship is actually on Mars. I come to Japan and I'm thinking, geez, I may not want an exploration CV kicking around. It's safe for me to have one, but I'm not sure I want one. But then I think, well, I've only got a small spaceport. Can I scrap it? I looked at the rules, and it looks like you can scrap at any base, which is not something I thought was the case. I thought you needed at least a servicing capability. It makes sense no matter how you cut it. You know, it would make sense if it was any base, because, you know, there are tools around to take something apart, and now you have resources. But it would also make sense if you required at least servicing, or if you required a full shipyard to take a ship apart and, you know, turn it into useful components. To actually activate that ship for various reasons. One is the numbers against China might be large enough. I'm seeing, you know, there's a warship here, a warship there. I've already got a warship, and I've got an asteroid right up there. Unfortunately for me, though, I can tell there's at least one matching warship there, or freighter there, and wow, the Chinese actually have a warship there. So the kind of nice thing is, from here on, everybody's bases are in alignment, so I can just look and see, are they in that slot? I still haven't fixed North America or Russia. Here I'm seeing some nearly criminal mismanagement. So it's the EU and Japan that are fully at war. They're the ones who really need stuff. Well, the EU couldn't get out of the war. They're putting a ship out, but, you know, that's one warship. China, on the other hand, has 5 warships deployed. Remember, they had most of what, you know, their fleet was mainly built already, and now they've thrown more. They've still got another warship they could put on the board. They have a big navy. Japan is throwing some significant firepower out. They've got 3 warships coming out, one of which was already in existence. This guy back here who couldn't be at a base, who isn't at a base, they could have built it, so obviously. But one of them is, you know, kind of light. The other one's very big. Great. North America and Russia are blockade level guys. North America threw 1 warship out. That's all they could afford. Their materials aren't really positioned as well as they might be, but, you know, they were figuring, you know, let the other people handle more of this. Russia is the one that really screwed up. Their positioning is such that they didn't have the materials, well, because I'm so confused about which base is where. This is actually on Mars, unlike, rather than being this location, you know, on the chart. So this one's at Mars. It has a large shipyard, but we didn't build a fucking elevator there. So I'm not cheating for them. They should have bought one. I don't know why they stayed behind, but, you know, whatever. Didn't think it was necessary because I had a lot of different shipyards, but all I could build was a CV3 in terms of military stuff. And then on these guys, I didn't have the materials available to build anything bigger. Well, this one's another small spaceport. This one's a small spaceport. So these guys didn't have large enough spaceports to build full-size ships. They can support the full ships, but yeah, so I just didn't have the right resources in the right place. Mur has the right resources, well, has the right kind of space building, and has iron. I have lots of iron everywhere, but I just don't have the full resources I need. And now I'm probably equally making things stupid. I'm trying to ship more iron up here so I can build another warship there that's small enough, assuming some of these get destroyed. And then and that's it, you know. So like the Chinese fleet actually looks more potent than the combined fleets of 4 other powers, just because they're geared up for war and not kind of hosed. Like the EU was kind of hosed, and they didn't transport materials around as well as they might have. And I chose not to lift materials because I'm afraid that they'd get intercepted. I want to be in a position where the Chinese were getting pushed back, and that looks like another mistake. Part of it is there's pirates in the way all over the place, but you know, that's providing some shield for the Chinese. Right. Planning the war is so expensive. But yeah, let's keep pushing on, I guess. The tough decision, you know, in the war players, whether you want to go first or not. That decision was easier before, but now it's something I have to balance and consider in all cases. But I look at South America, who's not in the war, and they want to jump in and go first because I've got a pirate to go for, and honestly, trying to figure out the mess, whether or not something's going to arrive somewhere, especially when not everybody's following the same protocol in terms of where a particular base is on their map sheet, which would be the case in non-solo play, right? If you're playing opposed, you can't enforce any kind of, this has to go here. And certainly what the Russians did is absolutely sensible. It's just everybody else is following something else. So you can't just look and see, is this that? It would be, I don't know what it would be. Let's just leave that be. I can tell you there aren't enough 1-point victory point markers for all possible configurations, because South America just gained 1 and I could trade that in for 3. But I notice I've got just a 5 here, and I think everyone else, you know, nobody's sitting on 3 1s. So it would definitely be possible to have not enough victory point markers for the game at the low end. You can use something else, but again, there is a slight shortage on the total tokens available in this game for a lot of things. And given the victory point markers were chosen to be big, you know, maybe making some other choices would have been better. Maybe it would have reduced clutter a little bit. The bloodletting begins. Remember, I'm doing the combating with movement on a pirate, and the South Americans failed to take the pirate out. Maybe if they had let it have direct combat, but in that case, they would have lost their ship, probably. They got a really nasty hit against them. Up to the biggest of the military powers, the Chinese, and the one everybody's fighting, right? They've made a decision to go after enemy military powers, not to try to blow away pirates. And it's not a clear decision, right? So if I clear away this pirate, I have the capability, I believe this is, no, this is my base. I have a large spaceport here, but it would be hard to get materials to it. So that's not trivial of a choice. I am sending stuff here to clear this pirate because this is, granted it's only a small spaceport, but it's got better materials in it. So I can build that spaceport up and start building warships. But elsewhere, what am I doing? I'm blockading and going to attack Legacy Base, and I'm not sure if I'm going to attack the Japanese base here. It's lightly defended by a ship, but it's got a big defense network, which means what? Remember, I'm allowing automatic interceptions on blockades, which again, that's me making shit up, but you know, it's okay shit, right? Even the designer is kind of like, yeah, that kind of makes sense, but it's not what I chose. And you can kind of excuse, you know, what I chose with kind of like a distant blockade or something. And it certainly would have to be distant because of the guns here, but probably interceptable, right? Considering that it costs something to lift off a planet, you can probably get your trajectories pretty easily. What would probably make the most sense is to still require a roll, but make it a much easier roll or something. But whatever. I don't want to tinker that much. Anyway, I'm not sure I want to attack the Japanese there. And I'm kind of afraid of this big Japanese ship, but I want to take out the This one is also under heavy guns, whereas the EU one has no guns to protect it. So I can go beat that up. And it's up to the EU whether or not they want the base there to get shot up. I'm just really interested in the ship at this point. But if the base surrenders, there's materials that I can take out. There's materials I can take out either way. It's just, whether or not they want to surrender the base or take hits on things that are important, like settlements and stuff. Crap. Well, there was a small defense network hiding under that EU ship that I didn't realize was there. I don't even know if I would have attacked in that case. Son of a bitch. I don't know what to do with this. It's got a single drone and 3 extra points of damage. I'm just gonna resolve it as if the fight happened with that there. I want to kill the ship. That's what I was aiming for. That's what I would have gone for. I don't know what the 3 extra points of hits would have done, because I don't really remember what my die rolls were. The impact of that is a reserve for the EU, a reserve for the Chinese. A little bit more damage on the Chinese than on the EU. I did 1 extra point of damage. I think that 3 points would have thrown me into that, but I'm not sure. I also reduced a point of damage on the EU because everybody was using their drones as defensive fighters. I can't afford to go in here. That's a large defense network there. That's 7 points. That would just blow me out of the water. So I'm just sitting out there on blockade duty. The other one is as well, although rather shot up at this point. And whew. Now I gotta keep thinking. I know when. No one else is really in that big a hurry. Nobody had any pirates they could clear out. Or I assume asteroids they could mine. I don't know. It's just too hard to keep track of everything. It's like I'm trying to go forward and backward at the same time on this chart, trying to figure out my best decisions. Screw it, I did what I did. The EU's choice of going, well, they basically did nothing, except they had a ship that was heading for Uranus for no good reason, and turned around and went back. It was allowed to go there. It just, I don't know why it was there. It can't mine. It's just a freighter. I don't know what the hell it's up for. I mean, it could search for stuff, but again, it really is serving little purpose. Maybe it was meant to go somewhere. I have no fucking clue. It certainly had nothing to haul from here, so I'll probably dismantle it. But I don't know. And now the U.S. They're actually trying to build a colony somewhere. Where did I go? Out on Titan, which they were set up for from last turn or last decade. But now they're going to go try to pick off this lighter CV5 out here that's blockading something. The Japanese on Mars, which is this light ship. Why are we letting them out? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a really good answer to it. It's possible points, and I can recover a lot easier than the Chinese can. I think the Chinese are under some heavy stress at this point. Not blockade, so we're now on Mars, not at our base. Not tired, but we took 3 damage. We destroyed the Chinese ship, and the Chinese could have surrendered because we're not at war. However, doing so would have depleted the Chinese ship and given up, well, not given up much. But the point was, if I can't beat these ships, I got problems. And that's kind of where the trouble goes. Is that like, yeah, if I just surrender, well, now I let the Japanese out and everything. Sure, that's what happened anyway. But at least there was some chance that I'd get some military advantage out of things. On the Japanese side, they swapped their military ship getting closer. Hey, there's Chinese ships, you know. Xing or Xing, whatever here, is not very interesting. But the next base in is more interesting. So I may want to go shoot that up if the Chinese aren't going to defend it. And I put my resource exploiter out here, since there is no asteroid here, which was what I was kind of aiming at. I don't want to go into the war zone with it, certainly not right away. I could go mining here, but it's easier for the Chinese to get here. Yes, they can get all the way out, but whatever. One thing that's not at all clear, well, one thing that seems a little weird is you're allowed to operate out of a base that's blockaded as far as I can tell, which means the Chinese could actually send warships out to Uranus. But I don't know if my brain could handle understanding that there is no port that I can operate out of. Again, this isn't as easy a map to understand as like the WIF map, where you could try to figure that out. And I'll still lose things on a World War II or any map really to try to figure out, do I have coaling rights here essentially? You know, using the Pax Britannica term. So yeah, the Japanese chose not to go after the Chinese fleet that's damaged here, instead going after the pirate, because I got another ship slipping in, and I'd rather have the additional firepower. Huh, my ships don't have missiles. Neat. Balance things, I see I kind of screwed up the... they would get the first option anyway, but the South Americans did their asteroid exploitation during movement. Life will go on. Right side, at least with all this warfare going on, there's less exploration. We got a depletion out here, which chased a North American rover away. I mean, it's possible it could go back up, but I don't want the complexity. I'd rather have to send another ship there. I mean, it's just a matter of, that ship isn't hurting the North Americans, so ideally I would just leave it there until I wanted to dismantle it, but the hope of it just finding something, kind of like the Mars rover, just like kept working long after its due date. I don't know, you know. The chances are just so low that anything would show up that the Russians get their thing and just got rid of it. And some mining going on, but otherwise not a whole hell of a lot. Now it's to the bases, and this is going to be fucking hairy because I got to try to figure out, you know, what goes where, what I want to build where, what I need to do. And it's the first turn, so it's the turn where all the trade chips are first available to make a decision on. The bases, I don't think there was anything too exciting. I think Russia managed to build a base to a small spaceport. Remember, or to a large spaceport. Remember, the large spaceport's a big advantage because it lets you build any ship. You can only build little ships at the small spaceports. But otherwise, I don't think anybody upgraded to something that was really impressive. I think I built this one up, which doesn't help me. I don't have materials or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't fucking know. Maybe this one, where I don't have probably enough materials. I think I have enough to build one decent-sized ship there, actually. So that's the big modifier on the military side. On the non-military side, South America decided to build this base so that we can start upgrading that. We got the materials already coming. We decided not to delay and try to build the better base over here that would cost one more. This way we can get, you know, established maybe on Titan or something, which I believe can be... Oh, no, that's not Titan. That's Triton. Crap. So the only thing left is Enceladus. I don't know where Enceladus is. That's probably not the first name on the thing. Well, I don't see it. Which means it's back here somewhere, maybe? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So, no opportunity for terraforming. And this is the whole thing. Nobody made the choice to terraform, is really what it comes down to. There are no remaining planets. You know, everywhere where we're all gathered together, there were places where terraforming choices could have been made. In particular, Ceres instead of Mars, right? No, Ceres instead of something. I thought Ceres was off Mars. That's Phobos. Yeah, Ceres instead of the asteroid belt could have been terraformed. It's a shitty card though, you know? And obviously the other card was better. So that was a reason not to go there. Although not that much better. So that may have been a mistake by everyone though, you know, the group think. Callisto, Europa, Titan, and Enchiladas. Europa's over here. Not as appealing as this. Ganymede is much more appealing. Callisto. Callisto is not bad. I'm trying to see. That would not have been a bad choice. But everybody went again for this with its high fuel production. Not really thinking about that possibility. Anyway, we're done with the turn. Nobody killed a pirate, so no money got dealt out. Nobody paid a pirate. All right. And I'm going to go find something else to do because I don't want to face this right now. My mold incident and things got chaotic down here. And everything was good for the games. They all survived. I caught it in time. My room's been kind of in more chaos than usual. And it's just sort of degenerated. Along with a lot of other things having to do with my house. So I've actually been spending some time moving the ancient stuff over here and just shifting things around, get less games over there. I got this whole shelf back here, but I don't trust it. I think it would hold, but I'm a little scared since I put it up myself. But anyway, this is something I've meant to do, was move some of the games over there and clear up, you know, just start making more sense out of what I've got for whatever reason. Anyway, that prevented me from playing a second turn yesterday, and also may have me down to just one today. I started building stuff with the EU, well, figuring out what they're going to do. They're launching a bunch of materials up to Mars. Remember, they have the space elevator. And we're seeing, you know, this is the cost of being at war with so many people. China, even if they can figure out how to get things so that they're not beaten at the asteroid belt, more ships are able to pop up in other places. Sure, they're able to build ships, but they're not able to blockade all their enemies' ports that are capable of building ships. So I think this massive alliance is going to work against them. Like the EU, both Japan and North America are launching materials up to Mars, build up fleets at Mars. That's where their weight is. China, on the other hand, and yeah, Pakistan, Asia, is going on their merry way, trying to set themselves up so that they can keep pushing their exploration past Uranus. The Chinese, on the other hand, are working. Actually, they have a large spaceport here, way out here. And that's kind of appealing. And then they have another large spaceport here, but they haven't cleared the pirate yet. That pirate actually can't hurt. However, my materials are a little better here. So I'm gonna build that ship. There is a Japanese ship threatening that, and the Chinese ship that I'd be building is pretty much a match for it. So that's a fair thing to do, actually. well, I think I'm going to try to get these ships out of here, and we're basically going to be seeing, at least from what I see so far, Russia may change the equation, but so far what we're seeing, the Chinese are going to be heading out towards Saturn and Jupiter, whereas the Japanese, the EU, the North Americans are all building their fleets up over on the Mars side. And I think we're going to see a big slam. The alliance, such as it is, the coalition of non-allied forces, they can't operate together, so they can't create a stack and defend each other or anything like that. So the Chinese will be able to pick off one enemy who probably isn't going to be as strong as they are. China's got a pretty big fleet still, but we'll see how that all plays out over the next couple turns probably. And the Russians built the Russians built a ship in the asteroid belt. No, that's on Mars. Can I build that? Nope, there's a reason I didn't build that before. Okay, I gotta take that back. I'm trying to send materials up here. Unfortunately, I'm blockaded in 3 of my big places. This one, I can't build that big ship. But I could build, if there are any small warships left. There are not. Okay, I just get my materials back and figure out what the hell I'm doing. The one difference is I am building myself a booster there to fling more materials. Those are going way out here, and so the Russians are going to start building their fleet out in the Uranus area, which is beyond what China has capability to really build at. So there's kind of a threat coming from multiple directions. The Russians may not be able to defend that with what they're sending up there. And by making a base there, they make that a target, because that's like the most dangerous place out of the Chinese. They can't afford to move in this direction without cleaning that out. But it's not like the Chinese are really set up in Saturn yet anyway. I realized I misallocated my Chinese ships, or my Chinese rockets, which are heading towards here. Hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Most of it not important, but there is a Japanese ship there, which may mean I don't want to launch these. These are all coming from here. I had to build the rocket. I screwed that up no matter what, but I don't have to buy those materials until the launch itself takes place. And the problem is there really aren't other places I could send stuff. I could send materials up to Mars, which I can launch from, but that's kind of not where my fleet is. So the nice thing is I move very late in the operations, and I hope I figured out what I'm doing with the South Americans. And I'm really not bothering to buy, not that I think I need to. The 2 players who are still in exploration base building mode, Asia and South America, are focusing on expanding to the next base rather than doing robotic explorations. And I think that's a good thing anyway. It's cheaper to do. Yes, they both have piles of money, but we may need that once this war shakes out. There may be a new leader, there may be something else that we have to take care of. So, comes the complexity of 7 players on a chart. I have to go down this way. Does anybody want to jump in ahead, then go backwards? And that is really when, especially when there's war or the first couple turns where maybe you need to get somewhere first. But I think only, for the pirates. But again, that's not important if you follow the actual sequence of play. So I'm making life a little harder on myself there. But yeah, when there's war, no matter what, the ordering becomes really important. So it's like, okay, South America has nothing they really need to do first. But what about Russia? And that becomes tricky to look at. Now I have to figure out all the Russian ships, what their strategy is, and what they're doing about the Chinese, basically. And I'm going to have to do that about all 4 powers that are at war with China and China themselves. Of course, once China goes, that changes the whole dynamic. And then maybe we want to let other people, we take the opportunity shots and don't hurt our own ships, but maybe there's an easy kill, so maybe we do want to trump in still. Trying to assess the Russians, I'm having a hard-ass time. I know they've got a little squadron of shitty ships, maybe not all conglomerated. I can't fucking find it. I'm pretty sure they had one. I mean, I got no warships here. I got a CV2 here. That may be all that they had? I don't know. I thought there was more than that, but I'm just not seeing it. Did I get... I got an engineering kit, so maybe I got something destroyed. I don't know. They got mixed in with the Japanese fleet. Yeah, I should have known the Japanese didn't have 4 warships in one place. And so the Russians gathered their fleet. They had the other ship here in their base. They gathered their fleet to attack the Chinese. The reason for that, they could go after this pirate. The reason they're going for the Chinese, the pirate's only worth 1 victory point and money. I got oodles of cash. Japan needs it more than I do, but I don't really care. But the main reason is because of my changing the rules a little bit, saying these are at this base. That's not how the rules work. The rules will only work if one of the sides has a base. Then the search isn't required, right? Like, let me look at how this is worded. If there is a base on one side, the search is automatically successful by both sides. Okay, so that's kind of how the interception would normally work with a blockade, but these guys are blockading. So I am just considering them to be located at or near that base enough that the Russian fleet can find them. Again, extrapolating a little bit, and I can see arguments going different ways, but that's just how I'm doing it. Okay, so each CV after the first increases the chance of finding, which is a base of 4. So now we're looking at 5 for the Russians and 6 for the Chinese. And the Chinese have a -1 to their die roll because they have drones. Okay, so the Chinese got a total roll of 0, needing a 6. The Russians did not find the Chinese, but they have collided. However, the Chinese have lots and lots of points. They're going to evade combat. I think, yes, because this is still a safe place. They found their safe space. So now, as far as I'm concerned, the Russians are located here too, but they can't be intercepted in the same way. They're doing a search of the area. What happened was the Chinese got an invasion roll. The Russians can't actually blockade, so they're actually in the main asteroid belt instead, for whatever that matters. And again, the actual rules would be they'd both have to roll a search die roll. The Chinese would have found them and still been able to escape. No difference there. The difference in the die roll is enough that they have that capability. Alternatively, they could have tried to use that advantage, but they're outgunned. Although there are advantages to having less ships. Alright, I'll look for the rest of the Russian stuff. These are also facing problems. Because there's Japanese here, the pirate will ignore them. They can't just fly away for free. But they could go over to their base. Ganglion or something like that. I think it's this one. That would be the right location. They're normal. And I also have the problem of this, which is blockaded which is interceptable currently. And I have the problem of these ships, which might be of importance. If I can clear the pirate, I could get my materials up here instead. So that sounds like a plan, but I don't know what the fuck to do with these guys. They definitely don't want to defend, they don't want to sit where they are. Here, though, they've got a big defensive network. They don't have the materials, though, to recuperate, although they can repair, and they could dismantle the other ship once they repair. Failed to clear the pirate. They didn't find him. They could have actually searched twice instead of doing it once. They have more firepower once, but whatever. It's what I did. By not finding them, I'm in a problem situation. Neither of these bases are safe. They've both got a Japanese warship. Oh, no, this isn't a warship. Oh, I can boost materials up to Zing, or Xing, and start building a research, supply source there. The danger of that is a Japanese ship, that being the closest thing, could sail out there, or the Russian ship. So I don't feel terribly safe doing so. I'm going to stick with what I did, which is just not buying those materials. I did have to buy the extra rocket, which boost. I also had to remember to move the Russian boosted materials. I forgot to roll for them. So China did take its turn. It didn't get anything useful done. Okay, well, nobody else wanted to jump ahead, so we went to the EU. They don't have a lot to do. They lost a booster. Got all their materials up to Mars, though. And I don't want to rethink, hey, did the situation change where I want to put things? That's fine when you're playing opposed and you're focusing on one nation, maybe. But man, my little brain can't handle that. But then I go to the US, North America, whatever, and I see I forgot to build a base. So I am going to do that base build out there. All I have to do, I automatically build it. All I have to do, though, is roll under my above my recall rate, which I succeed in, and I'm there. And now I can start mining stuff. I probably don't want to bring that ship any closer. The Chinese can't get out to Neptune, so that's a good place for me to be playing with my exploration ships. Other than the base North America built, they also are shifting more resources out there from some mining they were doing, and their warship went back to Mars using space elevators, which they have to refit, which kind of screws up this because I'm going to have to repair 3 damage, but I want a fully functional warship. I don't remember how that got damaged. I mean, obviously, shot up some Chinese. What were they doing on Mars? I don't know. Okay. They may have been it was the blockading fleet, I bet, that I went and shot up. Okay. And didn't get anything from it of any value. So that brought me to the Japanese. Japanese did a number of things. First of all, they went and attacked something. Yeah. They went and attacked this base. It surrendered, and they blew up some resources on it. And that's not a good thing, The Chinese could have built a rocket there and tried to launch resources out of there or something, if I knew what was going on, but it's hard to keep track of everything. So I got hit by a surprise attack there. And elsewhere, they hit the pirate and destroyed it, getting themselves oodles of cash, which they actually really do need. They're a little low on cash compared to the other major participants in this. Now they're up flush with half, they got $8 off of that and launched some materials. That leaves me with the 2 people who are not involved in the war, who are just working on their bases. The fighting going on, there's a lot less exploring. Japan, however, has managed to keep a little bit up, and I think I forgot to check Neptune touches. Let me do that. I did the mining part of it. There's a lot of mining going on to establish those bases. North America also searched for this. Let me do that Japanese Explorer orbiter while I'm out there. That's going to be 5, 8, plus whatever the bonus is, which is at least 2. So unless I get a 1, I'm okay. A 1 would mean I get 2 draws. So I get a draw. We haven't done this in a while on camera. Oh, we get all kind of fun. Okay, that's going to be a depletion, so I got to cut away because it gets too exciting now. Nothing but the yummy points. in the politics marker. It's hard to find gas giants. Or things that are valid under them. And for base building, I actually saw relatively little. The military people didn't manage to set up as well as I thought they were. I'm not sure what's going on. I thought I was going to see more base building. Maybe we're talking shipbuilding that I was setting up for. I don't know. I see there's a large spaceport here and I got piles of stuff, so who knows. And we push this to the 2, and that is probably it for tonight. Jesus, the game is much, much more complicated on these early turns in the decade. On the bright side, this red square here means the game might end there. Halfway through that decade, it starts having a chance of ending. And I kind of like variable end games. It reminds me of Lords of Sierra Madre over there, where you're like, I'm aiming for something, but I don't know if I'm going to get there, and it just, boom, it's over. It doesn't really resolve the war, but it's better than a fixed end, or the situation, but it's better than a fixed ending of, I know it's going to end in 2160 or whatever, no matter what. Now, eventually you do know that, but you don't know if it's going to happen earlier. So it's like, what's the mathematics joke about? You will be executed on one day this week, and you will not know which one. And the prisoner convinces himself that he cannot possibly be killed on any of the days, because on the last day he'd know that that's the day he's going to be killed. On the day before that, since he'd know the last day, he'd know the next day. But he doesn't know which day he's going to be killed, and they kill him on Tuesday. Yeah. All right, so that's it. All right, back after a couple of days off, actually, I think. At least one whole day. The heat has gotten rather hefty up here, and so that drove me to pulling down another computer game, and I'm kind of addicted to it. I really wish, and I'm trying to take some moves towards it, that I could get my basement situation working, because it's so much cooler and nicer down there that I really enjoy playing games down there. Unfortunately, of course, I've got this set up here. I've got Gloomhaven set up down there still, with some thought that I'd continue it, but I think I'll just pack that in. I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up again, but it just seems like such a mess to do, as big as this, and nowhere near as enjoyable. So anyway, I'm continuing with sort of the military buildup. The Allied force, the coalition of forces against the Chinese are fairly powerful comparatively, but China still has some oomph left in them, and they have a couple of warships out there, and they have a fight left, I think. The only problem is, I got a couple of ships out here too. We're kind of on the losing side right now, but if the other players don't continue building warships and keeping the military effort up, I think China could swing this around. So I don't want to get, I don't want to assume too much, basically, about it. And of course, the couple of players who are not involved in the war are continuing with, their regular operations, and we're getting to them at this point. I'm a little blurry because every time I walk away from the game, I've been having dreams about the Chinese fleet and everything, but it's not the same as playing it regularly. I have to say, it is kind of interesting, not so much with the military stuff, but with the non-military stuff. I did the Asian player setup for the turn, what they're sending up and everything. It becomes almost mechanistic, You get used to your little patterns of how you're going to represent things and everything. If only I had my Russians and North Americans aligned to the same base position scheme. But even though I was away a couple of days, that was really a problem earlier. It's becoming a lot easier, just because I put in enough hours with the game that I'm kind of got my little sneaky ways of doing things and everything to remind me. America's not at war, so they're not going to jump. They have nothing they really want to do. Russia took a kind of interesting option. They're flying back to Earth, take care of this pirate, and swung out there to take care of this pirate. They succeeded with that one and got themselves some cash, etc. They're at a little bit of a risk. There's no question. There's, a stronger fleet there, but it's smaller ships. We could end up fine. We just built that ship and, could do some damage to the Chinese. But the biggie is get a couple of victory points off the pirates, get ourselves some extra cash, etc. It looked pretty questionable. Like, hey, do we really want to be the ones to try to stop this with a bunch of weak little ships? I don't know, maybe. The Chinese are in an interesting situation. They've got one ship they can't recuperate. They were able to repair all the damage. They actually have a large spaceport there, so it's unlimited. And now I got to decide if the Chinese want to go. Chances are yes. I just don't know if they're going to try to slip by the Japanese here. If they don't, they're well protected. They have a large defense network, but it creates some interesting situations. Of course, on the other hand, the Chinese could slide in and they could lay siege to this, and I think they're allowed to attack it for whatever that's worth. They have to accept surrender, which means there wouldn't be that much there. If they try to leave here, the Russians could try to intercept. It's all iffy. One of the problems is there's not really a desire to turtle and protect your forces. It's better to engage, get some victory points, get some extra engineering chits off of destruction if that happens. It doesn't hurt that much to actually fight. Yeah, there's resources, but you have tons of resources right now. The real limitation, the size of your fleet, in some ways is more... I haven't found this to be the case, but for the Russians, because they have so many of these little ships, it's actually coming closer to how many CVs can they have on the board. And the answer to that is 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 4 is 8. That's a lot. As long as I don't have them all at the end of the turn. So, you're not really running up against that either. Although I could see a war getting that hairy, to tell you the truth. So yeah, I'm really in a conundrum here as to what to do with the Chinese. They're in an advantage here. Do I want to hunt the Russians? They don't have to intercept me if I leave. And then I could get a preponderance of force in the asteroid belt versus the Japanese. The Japanese do not have another ship yet, although they have one that they can build at Mars next turn. So, I mean, there's just this, wow, what is the objective here? Do I want to fight yet, or is it worth delaying? And it's a nice kind of problem to be faced with. Too many games, you're not really faced with that. It's clear what you want to do, and it's neat to be faced with the kind of, geez, I'm really not sure, because it's a broad strategic decision, and it has a lot of randomness and chance involved in it. It's not just yeah, it's obvious I have the advantage right now, and therefore I want to do this, I think I'm going to try to pick off the Russian. I think that's my best move. But I'm not sure the Russian wouldn't intercept if I tried to leave. Chinese are not trumping in. No one else is either. No one sees no one's in a position where there's something they want to do before anyone else anymore. Only the Russians were. So now we get to follow the normal order. Of course, we had to spend a fair amount of effort getting to the point where, yeah, one person trumped in and no one else did. Japan went for a semi-confrontational situation, marching in to lay a blockade into place. The Chinese have just found the Russians and destroyed their big bad warship. At cost, though. At cost. They took a total of 6 hits. It was a direct fire combat. That was actually the Russians' choice. The Russians got a big bonus on them. I was hoping they would get some victory points off this. but not so likely off direct fire combat because the Chinese get to allocate the damage against themselves. I could have spent points to make a damage point allocation choice, and would that have mattered? No, because I could have given 4 and 1, and then they choose the last point to allocate, which doesn't really help. And I also wouldn't have done as much damage. Well, yeah, I would have done as much damage. I would have taken more damage, but that's fine. I got destroyed anyway. I don't think. So here's the cool thing, though. I have cleared the path to Jihai, so I can launch these. And that was part of the decision, I guess. Although I don't think it was on my mind. A couple of things I forgot. Forgot to check the Chinese to see if they fatigued, and one of the ships did. I also forgot the Japanese didn't even think to look. The Japanese have somebody besieging there. I did an attack and it surrendered and gave up some resources. You know, the Chinese are not able to maintain. If you can't defend something with a fleet, and the other guy can get fleets out there, you're going to lose resources and not be able to, you know, pursue the war from out there. So that's one of the cool things. As long as I keep draining that, or as long as I drain that, it's going to be very hard for the Chinese to launch enough materials to do anything. And they lost something, actually on the launch pad, in the sense that they didn't even get the materials. So that's kind of cool. And I noticed that as I was working my way through, hey, what can the Japanese mine and explore? I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's doing there. Right, that ends the year, and I had a few brain farts. I noticed a Russian booster here that I didn't bother using. It's fine, whatever. But I don't even know where that is. I think it's here. No. Guess it's here. No. I don't know where the fuck it is. Zolistra, whatever. Where the fuck is this one? It's here? Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. North America managed to slip in ahead of the Russians because they were closer with their warships, so they're gonna sneak in and smash those pirates. Again, ignoring the Chinese, but building the ships up so that if the Chinese do get, you know, start looking like they're getting the edge, hey, we can sweep in and hit. Bad turn for the Russians overall, not just for getting that, losing a ship. Overall, just not good. Although we did get the victory point for the pirate, but whoop, 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 whoop. And, in terms of bases, not too much exciting in terms of exploration. You know, there's just not that much going on. Mostly it's, I mean, even this guy went mining instead. He was supposed to go exploring, damn him. But, yeah, I made one screw up where I think I got it corrected in terms of what the Japanese had versus what Asia had. I got confused as to who was building what during the turn, and you know, there's just going to be screw ups like that just happen when I'm playing something this big solo, especially when I'm not playing it every day. We got time for at least another turn or two on this video before I kick it up. I want to get to around here, just because the production sequence expends things. Although the game probably will speed up if it's like last turn, because the war will stop being as effective or as affecting, just because, you know, the ships start wearing each other out. But there's still production capability out there. Yeah. All right. It turns out I'm going to have to stay late for work today, so I still think so. I'm stealing the time early. Normally, I just end up sort of spilling into that. And I used to be much better about getting up here and playing a little bit. even if it meant stealing a little bit of time from work. But recently I've had a hard time drawing myself away. Anyway, over here I noticed something. As I start doing some production, hey, the EU is building itself another ship here, even though I got another warship coming in, trying to get a fleet together. It's absolutely important for me because I have a full state of war with China. It doesn't change that much because bases are essentially treated the same way, whether you're at war or blockade. You can run in and attack a base. The difference is that CVs can surrender if you're not at war, which doesn't make that big a difference. It feels like actually attacking a base is a rather extreme proposition, but you have to remember the English did this to the Spaniards using their privateering type tactics, essentially. So, I don't know, without a war. But one thing I noticed, the battleships, there is a little plus marker there. One reason why rules should not be just printed on something that is difficult to read. I mean, as eyes get older, I'm not sure I could see this earlier in my life, but now that little mark, I just happen to notice it. So what I would say the intention there is that all the CVs can be built once you hit that battleships level, which was one of the interpretations I was going to take had I not seen that anyway. I was kind of like, I don't know if it really makes sense that you have to get here. Why aren't these bigger CVs encompassed in the thing? Well, it's because you don't have like a compendium of this information in here, and in some cases there may be things where it's not absolutely clear how they align. But in this particular case, it really just comes down to the font. And somehow, I don't know how, Compass always seems to hit, they're getting much, much better, but they seem to always have less of an eye towards the presentation being as effective as possible. In some cases, it's really been horrible. I'll point out one of the worst ones was God Kings over there. I got other issues with the game, but the choice of the font on the cards made them unreadable to me. In other cases, like Balance of Power, there were certain choices made that maybe were understandable, but kind of like, why would you choose these colors? And maybe they were for a reasonable choice. I think there were other things though where it was difficult to discern information on counters, etc. And that's been kind of a running thing. Now, obviously, it's hard to get it perfect, and honestly, this was probably a bigger print item when it was first put to people. And maybe it just didn't get blind tested by the right group of adequately blind people. I mean, what you should be handing with a blind test is a near production copy that you're going to catch things like that along with the rules issues. Because if you're sending this to the same group that you normally have, they know this. They might be able, knowing to look for it, you can kind of see that it's there. But not knowing to look for it, standing at this distance, and only scrolling in on the stuff where it's at all confusing, where there's more words or something, that's a hard piece to absorb, Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to continue on with the building up. We're going to see the war keep going. Everyone is still kind of all in on the war effort. We're seeing warships, even Russia building a big warship again, way out, whatever their furthest colony is, out here in Glasnost or whatever. I'll never remember most of the names if they're not, intrinsically tied to my own culture. Yeah, it's just the nature of stuff. And the Chinese trying to get materials to not only repair this fleet, but to be prepared to build another ship. They're like one iron short, which means they can leave 1 point of damage on this Queen, and still have a pretty formidable 3 ships out there next turn. I've got the blockades marked. I had forgotten to do that. That's all the Japanese doing the blockading. They will probably pull this ship back. I don't think this base is a big threat. Although the Chinese could throw a bunch of materials into there, it does have the large spaceport. But there's also a Russian ship, waiting to keep coming and stuff like that. And I really ought to start doing some piracy type stuff, which is to say, let me bring a freighter along to haul materials out of there. It might be easier, on surrenders, especially if we're hitting something like this, which is becoming their major naval base. But if we're hitting something which has a lot of resources, might as well start stealing those resources instead of just burning them. The 2 people who are not at war, obviously working on moving further and further out. They each have 1 base. Neptune is as good as anything else, so there's no particular reason not to settle on Neptune, especially since Triton is pretty good and not not terraformable, though. That's the problem with these things out here. You can't terraform them. They're just worth points. But the thing is, you start terraforming a planet where everybody else is, and you're just helping everyone. It's whoever has the most colonies there who's going to get the biggest bonus out of it. So if you're spending your points on terraforming and they're spending their points on colonization, you lose. If there's a limited number of people like here, it would make sense, but you can't terraform here. And by the time that there was any divergence in terms of where the bases were located, it came because of the lower cost of building a space base on surrounding Uranus instead of... and strangely enough, a base around Saturn or Jupiter is as expensive as on any of the satellites, but for some reason, once you start going out, they do become a little cheaper, and it becomes possible to use a slightly smaller ship or less resources or whatever you want to, so that given that this is not a bad planet in comparison to that, what the hell, The person who always complains, I don't want you to get the wrong impression. There are some really, really clever ideas here, like these tracks for, approaching a location. That's a real simplification and an abstraction of the kind of movement that you have in, like, I'm not going to say high frontier because high frontier is just weird, but it does mean that you have no intercepts happening in space, in deep space. You don't have the kind of detail that you have in Battlefleet Mars, but it greatly simplifies what the user is going to do. It makes it just a mechanical task to move things forward. Of course, for me, I'm always like, geez, that's taking forever. Not this one. I know that's taking forever, but some of these others, I'm kind of like, did I miss one? Did I, I don't know. But whatever representation my failures probably will happen no matter what. All right. Now on to the complexity of, do you want to move? Do you want to move? Do you want to move? Which requires basically doing all the movement thinking twice. Because for the most part, I'm looking, does this, it's a little shorter on the first way across. Is there anything compelling to make any of these ships want to move? But I do still have to find all the ships, and that's the expense. Quicker than I thought. I was able to do it in about 3 to 5 minutes, which was amazing. There just really isn't anything that I have to even think about. One of the things about the war section, and I want to highlight this, is when you look at, there's certain, I have these patterns, right, that help me get through the turn without too much thinking, without too much effort. And those patterns are disrupted by the military situation. I think I kind of alluded to this, but I can very easily look and say, okay, where's my base? What do I need? Am I trying to push another base out? What materials am I trying to move around? What exploration can I do in the area? I've kind of fallen behind on the exploration. as shown by the fact that this did a mining for some reason. Yeah, terrible. But in terms of choosing where I'm going to go, and I actually chose to go here because of the exploration opportunities. There were no mining opportunities anywhere else though, so never mind. But that all gets skewed by a much broader type of thinking that has to take into account where other people's pieces are and everything for the military. And I haven't come up with patterns that shortcut that or make that particularly easy. So I'm more likely to make mistakes. No biggie. We all make mistakes when we're playing military simulations. But I'm also, spending a lot more effort trying to avoid mistakes, trying to figure out what the implications of each of my moves are. So with this general war, the cost has gone up high a great deal, which is part of why I'm playing less, because the turns take longer. I've had enough. So anyway, the North Americans cleaned out the pirate there, got the bonus for that. Yep, screwed the Russians over. But when I was going to lift this rocket, I realized, wow, I forgot the Russian rocket again. It is time. So I've rearranged everything. Everything in this position is Mars, asteroid belts, Jupiter, Saturn, etc. With the final one for the Russians, this is the Earth orbit one. That it may still confuse me because I'm so used to looking and being confused, but eventually it should settle in. I wish I had done this long, long ago. But you can see where, if you're playing opposed, this could actually be a problem too. Because if people choose to not follow the same ordering that you do, so like North America wasn't too bad. Well, I don't know how to put it. North America made this choice to just make this Mars, and then everything else was kind of in order. For the Russians, they really screwed things up. So Mir wouldn't have been that big a deal if I just knew Mir was Mir. But the problem is I started going this way instead of across like I did with everyone else. But I mean, that's what people's choices are. And it's a little painful, to tell you the truth. We're also getting messes where I know that I made some screw-ups that I may or may not have remediated in terms of settlement numbers or some resource or something else ending up in the wrong place. But that might have happened anyway. These boxes are a clustery, painful way to handle things. The stock is kind of thick. It might be useful to have made little insets into it or something. I don't know. But what might be helpful to me is to build some kind of tray mechanism to put on top of each one. Well, not to me because I won't have that energy, but to someone else who's having the same kind of clutter problem with spillover coming from one box to another. The boxes are not big enough to hold everything that's going on in a base. Through the exploration, not a whole hell of a lot going on. I think I've mentioned that before. Got a little bit. The Japanese seem to be very involved in it, even though they're at war. This is stuff they threw up earlier. Mining a little bit more active on, especially in the Uranus, but it's over here. And because the North Americans have a base out there, plus other people are saying, hey, let's go explore. The Russians, for example. Let's try to kick off and get some of the exploration value if we can, and then we can mine if we're still there. I didn't want to look up to see if I could do 2 mining or 2 explorations with 2 different ships. I think I can in both cases. Instead I split it though. I kind of wanted to do both anyway, so that works fine. A couple of things to look at with this though, because of the war, what we've seen is where the military zones are, there's a couple of asteroids kicking around. Now that makes sense for the people who are involved in the war, that they don't want to risk their CVs out there, but South America and Asia should be jumping on those. And yeah, the difficulty of remembering everything I'm trying to do. And the focus has, for them, I've been kind of defaulting to the, hey, get your bases out. Well, those guys are valuable. They're worth a victory point and resources. Yes, they're not in the best place location-wise, but you know what? I should be grabbing them. In particular, I've got this thing, which it might be, if it has, it does not. It's just a freighter. It's not useful for anything. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a South American one, though, back here at Progresso. Yeah, that's a warship. Yeah, it's got damage. What the hell? So yeah, it's kind of hard getting the ships out there. Another thing that I wanted to mention with the mining is making the decision on whether to return with necessary materials. So here, the South Americans chose to keep mining rather than pull the iron in. That's going to cost them a turn, because they can't build up either their supply station or their research station without iron. I didn't send iron because I got all iron coming, and I got iron here. Now that they're up to 5, they're almost certainly going to go, because they can only get 1 more iron. But yeah, you got to kind of make that balance and that trade-off. There's a lot of turns left in this decade. But of course, if I want to establish myself near Neptune, well, I ought to get my button gear, right? Something better might show up than this, though. I doubt it. It looks pretty good with its 6 bio research. All right, base time. What's going on in terms of base building? Players are kind of in this weird situation where, yeah, we got China under control. We're trying to get some value out of this war, but it's largely a frozen situation because the Chinese are under good defensive position, where they're blockaded or whatever. And they're kind of, this isn't really worth hitting. It's better to go mining. The best you get is 1 iron out of that. Screw it. It's not going anywhere. It's not a threat. The other things are threats if they're blockaded, or this, which is their main military base, and no one's taken care of it yet, basically. And it's tough because other than this, which is, pretty much knocked out, it's only got a fuel left in it. And in fact, I think they want to sell that fuel, because why not? They're short on money, and the blockade does not prevent them from selling it. It's being sold locally, and the money's just being credited on her. There's no real movement happening, but people are kind of like, well, if we beat China up enough, we might be at war next turn. Something may change. So everybody's a little afraid of, and keeps setting up to build more ships of what the next decade brings. All right, I'm gonna squeeze at least 1 more turn in here, maybe 2. And yeah, I know I'm incredibly chatty, but that's what happens when I don't get to play a lot of turns in a row. I think more, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, time to get back to work. I've already been interrupted, had to deal with some work stuff, so gotten a little confused. Current builds I don't think indicate anything that's going to be too exciting going on. Hey, I remembered to fling stuff, or at least a plan to fling stuff. I did fling stuff last turn. North America, building another warship. I may have cheated by building a warship over here. I see the supply station's not big enough. Of course, maybe it was before I shifted things around. Who knows? But I think this was built there. Mistakes happen this time. I'm definitely lifting more materials to get that supply station up to a large spaceport, which is what I'm going to need to build that sucker. Assuming it's in time. China built another warship, repaired a lot of damage, but I don't have the capability to refresh or repair the last point of damage. But the important thing is refresh this last warship. So I'm kind of stuck right now. Now, both South America and Russia have passed. I don't think China wants to move yet, but I gotta make a comparison as to what's sitting around. So there's a big ship for the US sitting there. Now, I can't go challenge that, but if I want to slip away from it, I could run now. And maybe combine against the asteroid belt where there are a few Japanese ships sitting guard on my base. At least I'd have equal numbers, but man, I just don't see that as that viable, to tell you the truth. I think I'm in trouble no matter what. I think I do want to jump ahead though to get materials up here to get that third ship so that the North Americans can't just jump in there and blockade me. Forgot the mechanical task of moving the ships down. I did that first, but I think I'm in the same position. I don't think there's anything too exciting, for example, that the Russian fleet that showed up near Earth really actually wants to do, where they need to get the jump on things. During build phase, there were a couple of people, Japan for example, who look like they're close to being able to build one of these, but they're only close. I'm like one supplies short from being able to build something that could go mine that asteroid. So no big hurry on any of those. Everything where that was close to being set up, there's two of these asteroids, didn't happen. Of course, the Chinese could have gone and done one, but they need their military. Although they're running low on cash too. People are lifting stuff to be able to build one, and people may be shifting stuff to be able to build one. Have to keep in track the idea of, hey, what's the priority on the initiative? Because, like Japan may not want to build one of those in a location if South America is going to get, or Asia is going to have a ship there. That's hard to keep track of all that stuff though. All right, so Chinese materials made it, and I don't think they're going to move their fleets. I don't know. See, it might make sense for me to go blockade the North American fleet that's present at Jupiter. The problem is that if I do that, then I'm no longer protecting this force, and I could end up separated. At least I have 3 ships here. They're all ready to go because I got the lift. That's a lot of firepower, no matter how you put it. And I'm sitting under if there are any guns here. I don't know if there are. Yay, no. No guns whatsoever. Which may be all the more reason to stay there and protect that ship. Americans not blockaded in this defense network. What I'm doing is I'm combining. I had ships coming from the asteroid belt and from Jupiter. They're both moving here. From Mars and from Jupiter. They're both moving to the asteroid belt as a staging area, so I have a combined fleet. Again, maybe not enough. Meanwhile, the EU is like blockading the hell out of this. Not really sure why, but there's so little advantage to anything that I do. At the very least, there isn't a lot of gunpowder here, so maybe I want to shoot it up and start doing some damage. At least wreck their resources. I can't do anything to try to force a peace, even though, there's nothing China can offer me, basically, except paying to reduce the war position, which is fine. The EU is really kind of tapped out. Oops, forgot to lift some stuff. Is tapped out for this turn unless I can start building some new stuff to do exploration or building up bases or whatever. And that's kind of a problem a lot of the players have, is that they're not focusing on the exploration stuff. So now Asia and South America are gaining some ground on there, because this war, unlike the last one, isn't generating tons of points for anybody on any side, really. The last one was generating points even for the loser of the war, but somehow this one's stagnated, and it's not a good war for anyone, really. It's more how I pictured what a war would be like in this, that it would be an attritional type thing. Here, what's the attrition? Well, you keep spending resources on ships instead of on other stuff, but you just can't I don't feel like anybody can let the Chinese out because they could do a lot of damage. But we can't get a grasp on them either, you know? EU maybe should have launched an attack just because I have 2 ships against a weakly defended base. They can decide surrender or not. If they don't surrender, they take real damage as opposed to just the materials that are there. So it was probably a mistake not to do so, but it's okay. I'm still working on building something that's not a warship. The Japanese, on the other hand, are gathering all their ships basically for an assault on the asteroid belt, which is heavily defended. Heavily defended. But it does have this damaged ship that can't be recuperated. It's got a situation where, hey, if they surrender the base, then I just shoot up the ships. They're not going to surrender the base with a defense network there. But we kind of want to just lose some of the Japanese ships too. They have way too many CVs out there. And I want to just dismantle them. You know, I want to gain something for them. So that's one of the things. Is some victory points have to be generated from war. You can't afford to go to war and not fight. As we boil through the 5th year, going into the 6th, a little bit of exploration going on. We saw the depletion here. Nothing too exciting, obviously. Mining going on. I hope I'm keeping track of it. I'm not absolutely certain I'm succeeding. In particular, I'm not sure this guy pulled materials in, but I think it did. I think there was a flip-flop of units with, I'm not sure, because that went out with the new stuff. Oh well. Whatever. And in terms of building, not much of interest, although this, which is the former Mir, this is the one surrounding Earth. That's why I'm a little iffy about it. I thought this had the capability to build big ships, but I don't remember anymore, so I'm just going with what's on the board. It's building its way up to being an actual military installation. It never really needed to exist because I always had Earth as a base, right? And then immediately afterwards I had the asteroid or Mars as a base so that I could build the big ships to keep going, you know. And they were small enough they could take off from Mars. So I think we're okay there. I might be able to squeeze another one in tonight, in which case I'm leaving. I'm kind of hoping to. I'm leaving the video from going up yet. But yeah. All right. Planning that happens each turn during the ship production phase. That's probably the thing that drives the turn the most. You know, do you research? Are you building a base? Are you involved in military? What's going on? And it's hard to capture it all because it's not sequential, really. I mean, it is, but it's not, you know, it's something that I'm doing for each nation, and now they all become kind of jumbled together. So all I can kind of give is the picture of what's going on in general. A couple of snapshots maybe, though, like Japan decided to build a military vessel in the asteroid belt because Asia had the capacity to build themselves a freighter. Well, not a freighter, but something that can grab that asteroid. And Asia has the capability of going before Japan. Again, all this shit you have to balance. You have to look at the other guy's chart. You have to look at, you know, what's arriving where. You have to look at a lot of different things, as well as what you're capable of doing. And not just one other guy's chart, everybody's. To see, can I get to that asteroid before somebody else does? This is very different from, you know, the colonization type games that I'm used to. Most of the space games, you're not fighting over the same resources, you know, that I play. Usually those are a situation where you expand out. The 4X type games, you expand out, you grab your little shell, and then there's conflicts at the edges with one other person. But here, you're competing with all 6 other players for pretty much the same resources. Now, the games that do that, things like Europa Universalis and Conquistador, while you might perform some planning in advance, you have an easy capability to change where you're going. You don't have some little resource out here and you're not, dealing with your own, I want to say resources again, the components that you build a ship out of or whatever. You're not having to balance that in advance before the other guy goes. What you might see is, oh look, he discovered America. Let's go discover Asia instead. The sea route to Asia or whatever. You might choose some other action based on that. Now that's less reasonable. It's less intuitive. But gameplay-wise, it proves to be more manageable than everybody rushing to get to the same thing. Russians, speaking of rushing, built another warship so that they can start actually playing in the military realm. Knocking out Zing or whatever was not very useful, but it was all I could really do until I got more ships. Like I said, the Japanese built another warship. South America has a ship which might conceivably be able to get here. I don't think anybody else has anything terribly easy to get there. This would actually have been an option coming from the asteroid belt for a launch, but there the balance and complexity of figuring out what the hell is going on is just too great, I think, for anyone to be able to do. No one was poised to build a ship in Jupiter to go take advantage of that asteroid. And one of the big problems with that is, hey, China just built another ship. They've got their big navy, so no one who's involved in the war wants to have anything to do with Jupiter, right? And that leaves two players, and they both are taking care of this as they can. Okay. I guess it's movement time. I do the mechanical task of downgrading things. I noticed Polaris is sitting here. I think this was a decision to withhold sending them anywhere. I do have two warships here though, so that may have been a mistaken choice, but they wouldn't be arriving very quickly. They'd be arriving in another turn, I think. It's hard to tell because of the multipliers. So yeah, I'm at 0.6. That on 3 is going to still take 2 turns. So yeah, I'm probably going to send it to join my other ships. But everything's kind of, for the North Americans, is kind of in this, I don't know where to go because other people are doing stuff. Like the Japanese are launching an attack here. The EU chose not to launch an attack here, but maybe the Russians will, and maybe the EU will follow up. Just lots of ouch. What do you do? China is the first person who decided to jump ahead. Because why? I don't got a good reason for that, to tell you the truth. Oh, to slip out of here, but I don't think there's anything there. I did it. It's stupid. Yeah, I should have passed. But anyway, what I did was I resolved a couple of liftoffs, and they both actually blew up on the launch pad, which is terrible. All the resources I was sending up are gone. It wasn't going to be enough, I think, for a ship right away, but another turn would have been. I don't have a lot of money left, so this may be, and I do not have, I have a fuel here and I have supplies in other places. This ship may never be able to be resurrected, in which case I may dismantle it for parts, but we'll see. Anyway, we're going to try to rescue those. I don't think it's going to work. I think the Chinese Navy is going to get destroyed. Getting confused, I had the Asians go forward with Asia. It's an odd name for it. It's really that Indo-Pakistan area, and the flag represents that. But they went forward, also jumping ahead without me really realizing why. Because I wanted to go grab this asteroid, but that's actually just an exploration task. And all I'm doing is making it easier by laying down a marker for other people. It's not a big deal in this case because they're not really telegraphing anything anyone didn't know, and none of their movements are reliant on anyone else. They're going to build themselves a base over there. With the US base, it's the best choice. Now the question is, does the EU want to launch an attack? Gosh, I don't know. All I'm doing is destroying resources if they surrender. If they don't surrender, there's the potential that I could get a victory point if I completely wipe out the base. That's not going to happen. But I could reduce my naval power. That might not be such a terrible thing, taking some losses, because I'm not really fighting the war, and cancel out this base for it. I don't have a whole lot of warships though, and I think I would rather preserve my warships for whatever the war next decade is, maybe. I'm pretty sure the Russians are going to dive in there though. Out to the North Americans, and they're going to have some stuff here, but I want to focus on their military side. So they have a fleet positioned here on this, the most defended of the Chinese bases. They could slip in an attack, and the Japanese won't be able to interfere. However, it doesn't look particularly attractive, and the fact that the Chinese did jump ahead and go first, I am going to sail out and attack their other base. So I don't want to face that fleet. I don't want to face the base, but this other base is undefended. Let's knock it out, you know. And in doing so, why don't I collect my fleet together if I can? So that's a 5 at 0.6, and I have other stuff to do too. So that gets me out all the way to the 3 out there. The next interesting decision is the next player, Japan. I don't think they have anything back here to deal with. They have some search capabilities still kicking around. So here's what's interesting here. I've got a warship coming in with these 3 warships. That's not good. And I've got 3 ships sitting over this heavily defended base. I think I'm going to scream into the base. Another option, though, might be to move into the flyby box to protect my other ship. Of course, that lets the Chinese kind of win and remove this embargo. I should have made the attack last turn. Oh, boy. I just don't know. You know, this is heavily defended, and I am outgunned, but I would not be outgunned in the flyby box without that base defense there. And they're still not going to be able to put stuff there. What am I going to gain from this? Possibly some victory points? Okay. Let's avoid combat. Because combat kind of scares me. Mainly because it's kind of a hassle to do. There's another factor I didn't realize. I actually have a ship at this base. So I can increase my total strength. But here's the thing. I can intercept those Chinese warships, which never should have gone yet. If the Chinese had passed, the Japanese wouldn't get this opportunity to understand what's going to happen, right? So I would have just launched my attack, you know, set myself up and launched the attack on the base. And then the Chinese show up. But by jumping them ahead, I have screwed the Chinese. And by taking that initiative action, and it's a lot worse than I first thought it was going to be, but you know, I can't undo it, or I don't want to. So yeah, I'll gather the fleet here, and we'll have a big naval battle, which is definitely better for the Japanese. Now, what's good about it is the Chinese will be able to throw another ship in too, so it could end up a closely fought naval battle. But this looked like I was going to be fighting a base that I just do not want to fight. There's really little advantage to hitting the base, except militarily, you want, you know, to knock those bases out of operations so they stop building ships. Well, the Chinese are running out of money. They're not going to build many more ships. A little mechanism in terms of where you want to fly. So the Russians are flying to Jupiter, in part because there's a bunch of U.S. ships that are going to be covering their ass there. So no matter what happens, it's okay. And there's nothing of interest to attack. Those can surrender with no effect whatsoever. So Jupiter is the first interesting place on my route. I don't want to just jump all the way over to here. It would take about the same amount of time to move to any given place. So for example, if I went to Saturn, it would have put me into the 1 box. Jupiter puts me in the 2 box. This is because of the speed increments right now. Because if they were worse, these wouldn't be equivalent, and if they were better, they also wouldn't be equivalent. It would be cheaper to make longer jumps, I think. I'm not sure. There may be some places on the edge where they're not the same cost, but basically you pay about the same cost to go from one planet to another, whether you take stops along the way. But what happens if you take stops along the way? You increase your flexibility. You know, you can shift your fleet in a different direction, you could stay where you are, whatever. Once you make the decision to make a long jump, you're stuck programmed in on that jump for a long time. You're not going to be able to swerve out of the way. And again, that's the representation on the game. But if you stop at every planet on the way, and that's indicating you're coming close enough to the planets that like warships engage around that planet will be able to engage you. What that means, as opposed to taking a cut across space, what that means is you're giving an opportunity not only for yourself to have more flexibility, but for everyone else to have more flexibility as to your ship. Now, everyone else knows where your ships are going when you program a long jump, but they can't do anything about it. But if you're making lots of little hops, they can stop you on the way and shoot you up or something. I'm afraid the COVID fog is a little heavy on me today. I didn't have any coffee. That's one thing I usually have. And I've been drinking too much tea, which I know causes problems. So I think we're going to have to fix that. I'm hoping to make it through this turn without completely collapsing. But I am making mistakes. For example, the Russians intended to launch an attack, but then I switched gears and took care of some stuff over there. And then ended up doing the South American turn to follow them up. Now, one of the things switching gears is I'm sending the Russian freighter or explorer or whatever over here to either get to the asteroid or to help steal stuff from here. Either one works. South Americans are going to beat them to the asteroid though, just because of the turn order, and they didn't do what they need to do, which is Rojo is this. Good, I can recover there. Wow, why am I... Oh, that's a warship, that's why. Okay. But I do want to launch that attack. Out because I have not done an attack on a base of significance. And this one has significance. Well, the first choice is, do the Chinese want to resist or not? I could get some victory points by resisting. I could lose base capability by doing so. However, I would like to gain some victory points, I think. I don't know. So, rather than just surrendering, unlike to the chicken shit EU, which has bigger ships but didn't want to risk them, this big Russian fleet of garbage is going to come in. So we still roll a search die roll to see if we get any tactics modifiers here. And we're impacted. So both sides is added by 1 for each CV after the first in the fleet. You subtract 1 if your fleet can train. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the search die roll goes from 4 to 6 now. And this is here. There's no ships there. Both sides. Oh no, only the Chinese have drones. So they're at a -1. And they roll a 4 to a 10. They get a 6-point benefit. Well, that's going to help. Can I avoid combat? Oh, I'm going to have to look to see if there's an exclusion to that. You should not be able to avoid combat as a base. Research couldn't find anything, but that doesn't mean I'm going to allow that to stand. Reason says the base cannot avoid combat. You could make arguments that maybe it could cloak itself or throw all kinds of garbage up and make it impossible to be attacked for that year. I don't know. At this point, though, I feel like I have to make a lot of little tweaks to the game, and that one just seems like it's an absolute assured one. Which means I can make a direct fire. I don't want to do that. So then I could increase or decrease damage. And I could spend to select targets. Now, how does targeting work? I get to select my targets anyway. So what I could do is force the Russians to hit certain resources of mine. I'd rather affect the total damage, though. My goal is to kill things, so I am going to add 3 points of damage to the Russian fleet for daring to come in. So let's take a look at what we got here. I also have a drone, which I can use as either a fighter or a bomber. I have the technology to use either. I am going to, again, increase damage. So I've got +4 damage to the Russians. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to get my ass handed to me, but I want some victory points out of it. On my side, I have a strength of, or I have a die roll bonus of 8, 3 plus the 5 attack. The Russians have 2, 4, 8 plus 5 is 13. And so I roll. I get an 18 as my base roll, which means I'm going to do 5 points of damage plus 4. So I'm going to do a total of 9 points of damage to them. And this is where my brain starts failing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13. They're at 17. They also do 5 points of damage. Okay. So I don't remember my numbers anymore. I'm doing 5 points to the Chinese. I'm doing how much to the Russians? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to the Russians, I believe. I'll mark that like this. Okay. Now damage gets allocated one at a time, basically. Both sides get to choose their own damage, and I don't remember who gets to go first. Did I get that right? The combat value? I had 3, 8. I don't have 8. I have 9, 10. So I am actually up 1 more point of damage against the Russians. So I get to do 10 points of damage against them. They have more ships. That's one of the modifiers that I have trouble remembering. The bigger the enemy fleet, the easier it is to hit. It's very easy for me to forget that one. Okay, allocation of damage, well, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I am going to wipe out the entirety of the Russian fleet. So I'm not going to worry about that much. We'll just take care of that in the after effects. But the Russians get to pick 5 hits on the Chinese. And this is kind of interesting. Because against Tingagong, I could wipe out settlements, but settlements are kind of cheap. 4 of the hits on the defense network will break it, which seems like a good idea. And 1 more point of damage I'll do on the refinery, because resources are going to be easy to destroy, but they don't have any iron there, so repairing damage to the refinery should be hard. And the refinery produces settlements. I don't think you do any damage with them. So now lots of chits, and I don't know how many. I count them up. It's a 3, a 2, and a 2. It's probably 4 points of victory points and 4 points of engineering chits, but I'll make sure. And it was only 3. 2s and 3s are each worth 1. I thought 1s and 2s. There are no 1s. This was a terrible move by the Russians. They gave China 3 victory points. Yes, they maybe gained something in terms of trading the resources of those ships that I really didn't want to keep alive and would have to dismantle for technology. But what they gave to China is worth a whole lot more. Victory points are hard to get. I gave them a whole handful. On the other hand, this base is now open for the EU to just keep whacking. So, you know, I have really taken that base out of the equation as anything possible in this decade. I think that brings us to exploration, and I need a break. 2135 is a wrap. I'm trying to think if anything too exciting happened in the exploration side. We got Asia heading out further. They didn't find anything. I don't think anything interesting. I don't think there was a depletion. There were a couple of points, obviously. The asteroid got claimed with the bonus of fatiguing the ship, so now I can actually haul that material back or somewhere else. It's almost full anyway, and then decommission the ship further out for better resources, because it's not a freighter, but it's close enough. It's really not capable of building bases. It looks like South America has acquired enough materials to go build a base on Neptune. I could build it here, but we don't want to do that. So we'll build that over on Triton or whatever, along with everyone else. Again, everyone goes to the same place. And that may not always be the case. Obviously, here there was a reason why not, but it is one of the problems with the idea of terraforming the planets that can be terraformed. However, the concept between terraforming and resource value becomes an interesting question at some point or another. It might be worth terraforming someplace far enough out, but you know, it's better to, I think, this is just my assumption, so I don't know why I'm saying it, but I think it's better to build bases further out. So settlements, it's just 0.5 if you fully terraform, and 0.25 bonus if it's partial terraforming, half terraformed. Whereas the actual settlements are worth an extra 0.25 going from the Jupiter, Saturn to beyond. So, you know, resources sound more important. You can get more settlements out further if you're producing materials there, or if you're producing tech or whatever. So I think being in the best locations is probably more important than some eventual goal of terraforming planets, which feels a little weird, but you know, given that you can't claim planets and you can't defend them and drive people away from them, I don't know how much the terraforming really makes sense, because everybody is either working together, you know, everybody who's on the planet is going to be in favor of it, and they'd have to come to some sort of agreement. But if everybody's there, there's no point, you know. Anyway, base building, not a whole hell of a lot happened, to tell you the truth. The upgrades that we see were less on the military side and more on the exploration side. And that even goes for people in the war, like Japan. They're building up their supply station, but that's what they need to keep pushing out, you know. So if they do get that up to a small spaceport, well, then it's only a step away from being a military spaceport, right? But yeah. All right, this one is going up because it's been almost 2 hours, and you know, chances are that won't make 2 hours, but whatever. On the bright side, I got myself some coffee, took an aspirin. We'll see if that helps at all. It usually seems to clear up when I do that. But yeah, it's a really horrible fog. All right, let's let this go.